Hey, so thought about going ahead and continuing with my the day I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Continuing on from my last video, I told you about a lot of the symptoms that I had, and one symptom I forgot to tell you about was I had this cough for probably 2 years that was consistent. I just couldn't get rid of it, couldn't shake it, and I never thought to talk to the doctor about it. I just thought I had allergies, seasonal allergies, and so yeah, I did a lot of coughing, and I think I lost about 15 pounds and got a lot of core strength because basically a workout, really. Anyway, the day that I was diagnosed with MS, well, let me back up a little bit. Things have been going on for a little bit. I had been having the same issue with my leg. I couldn't feel the skin when I dried off. It had been going numb, and I had also, I was trying not to think I had something wrong with me. But the thought that I did, I mean, the biting my lip, the stuff that I was doing, I just really didn't um, want to admit to myself these things were going on and that all of them added up together actually meant something. That it was easy for me to isolate every single symptom. I have a cough, uh, allergies, I itch, allergies, um, just whatever. I could make an excuse for anything in the world. What's this problem? Why am I biting my tongue and chewing my mouth when I eat? It's because I'm not paying attention. I just kept making more excuses for every single thing that was wrong in my health. But finally, one day it came to a head that for several days I had been trying to dry off my leg, or trying to dry several days when I was drying off after the shower, I would dry off my leg, and I could notice that the same thing returned in that I wasn't able to feel the skin on my leg again, and it was the same sensation. And after the first time I'd had that sensation and having to go to the hospital and the ER and everything, it really left a mark on me. It's like, okay, let's pay attention to that sensation from now on. This is something. I do have a bulged disc. And when my leg went numb, I thought, okay, go back down to the ER, see the doctor. I might need to get surgery. And that was something I was thinking about was, I don't think I'll do it because the odds just aren't that great. Unless it was going to really be simple and really the odds were in my favor. But otherwise, I was like, nah, I'm just going to deal with it. But when I got down there, this doctor came in, and it was kind of funny because he looked like a surfer. He had long hair, shaggy blonde, probably looked like he was about 25 years old, just graduated, and looked like he belonged in Southern California, not Arlington, Texas. And so I wasn't really expecting much. He listened to me, asked me some questions, and then disappeared, and I didn't hear anything from him. And we were just waiting and waiting and waiting in the ER room, and me and my mom. And then the nurse comes back, and she's got this whole list of things that the doctor ordered for tests: MRIs, x-rays, blood tests. I was there for hours getting tested, and so mom, I eventually just said, just go home, I'll get a cab, and it's just 3-4 miles away. So I was like, I'll just get a cab and everything will be fine. But then he came back and he said, look, I just don't like the way everything's looking, and I think we're going to keep you here a few days. And he ordered some steroids and things like that. And I told him, said, look, those steroids put me on the ceiling. Can you add something like Valium or something to it to calm down the steroids. I can't handle that steroid jitterness. And so he did. And I said, and I also told him I had a lot of trouble sleeping in my own home. I'm never going to sleep in here. And so, of course, he gave me sleeping pills for the duration of my stay. And so I went upstairs. They got my bed, all that. I was all hooked up to my IVs, and I had no idea what was happening. I kept thinking it was a bulged disc, and then the next morning, two neurologists walked into the door. Uh, my mom wasn't there. She'd gone to work. She wasn't thinking anything was wrong either. I was just kind of, I have no idea why they're keeping me. Maybe I got good insurance. But two neurologists walked in, and they started asking me questions like, had I been traveling? Had I been bitten by a tick? Had I had any accidents? Any illnesses? Just 50 questions. And we talked for probably 30 minutes. And after that, the male neurologist said, I think we're going to go ahead and get a spinal tap on you. And I was like, okay, I'd never had one. But then it scared the hell out of me because the other neurologist was standing there on the other side of the bed. And she said, okay, so roll over on your side and don't move. And then she told the other asked the other neurologist, do you want me to hold his arms? And I'm like, is this going to hurt bad? Because y'all didn't tell me anything about that. And so I'm sitting there anticipating the worst pain of my life because I can't imagine why somebody would just off the cuff, do you want me to hold his arms? It's probably going to be painful. But it wasn't. Didn't hurt at all. And they sent it off, and they said it'd be 3-4 days before I got the test results back. And of course, my mother and grandmother were coming to visit me and bring me treats and things like that. Brought my laptop to me so I could sit there and goof around on the internet, listen to music, watch YouTube, movies, whatever I wanted. And then one morning, the male neurologist walked through the door, walked into the room, and nobody was there. My mom wasn't there. My grandmother wasn't there. And he just kind of coldly told me, you're positive for multiple sclerosis. And I just remember everything kind of going foggy at that point. He was talking, but I can't remember what he said. I was just looking out the window going, I have multiple sclerosis. I don't know what this means. I know it's bad. You end up in a wheelchair in this. This is a really bad one. And then he left, and there was no nurses or anybody around in the room. Seems like for hours. I was just, then lunch came. That was when I got some contact with somebody, but I wasn't going to dump everything out on them. I mean, why? But just somebody in the room with me at the time was nice, and I remember that. Just the nurse bringing in my tray meant something. And I remember looking out over the city and thinking to myself while I was eating my lunch by myself, and I knew I only had my mother and my grandmother, and I was like, I'm in this on my own. I don't have a support team. I don't know what I want to do. And while I was in the hospital, the doctor had ordered a test for epilepsy, and I had a seizure. And so since I'd had seizures in the hospital, well, that comes into play later. But anyway, later on, my mother and my grandmother came, and the both the neurologist, the lady and the man, came and told my mother and grandmother what was going on and what had happened to me as far as the diagnosis. And I think they knew about as much about MS as I did. Not much at all. Uh, the doctors were talking to them. I do not remember what they said. I was so much in a fog. My brain was just fried. I was like, huh? I mean, what do you say? What do you do? You're laying in bed and you got IVs sticking out of your arms and a nose, a tube up your nose. You're kind of locked down. And I just remember thinking, this isn't how I imagined bad news from a doctor to come. Uh, I had in my mind that there was this Hollywood version of getting bad news. I thought that they were going to um, maybe talk to my family, warn them that they're going to give me some bad news. That Hollywood moment where everybody gathers together and cries and makes plans, and how are we going to support our loved one? You know, the Oscar moment. If it exists, then I didn't experience it. Uh, but it was pretty devastating to me. Uh, that was something that really stuck with me, was being alone in the room right after he told me. I don't think I'll ever shake that. But they discussed everything with my mother and my grandmother and got together a plan, started telling me I needed to see neurologists, not psychiatrists, because my panic attacks and anxiety were not panic attacks and anxiety, they were seizures. And they were presenting as panic attacks. And so that's when I found out it wasn't anxiety all along. I had epilepsy. So I was also diagnosed with epilepsy that day. And that set off a chain of events. I went back home and I had very bad insurance, so I couldn't find a neurologist anywhere. And finally, contacting the insurance company enough, I finally found a neurologist in Dallas. And so I started going to see the neurologist. They put me on some meds. They started me on DMTs, disease modifying therapy. I was on Tecfidera, and then I started to try another one, but I got so many side effects from that Tecfidera. Eventually, I stopped taking it. I'll talk about it sometime, but uh, not really what I want to talk about here. But so I get home and I tell my boss what happened and why I've been gone for a week, and update them about my health condition. And when they found out that I had epilepsy, I got fired. Lost my job that day. I could have sued, I could have thrown a fit, but I didn't. I didn't want to. That business couldn't support that kind of action, and it would have hurt too many people. If I'd done something like that, people would have been unemployed. And so I began looking for a neurologist, and when I found one, the first one I found was at John Peter Smith in Fort Worth, and that was the only one that would take me. And when I went up to go see the neurologist, the nurses were arguing, saying, Dr. So-and-so isn't seeing any patients or taking any new patients. And the other nurse said, she's taking this one. And I was like, oh, crap. I'm going to be seen by a doctor who does not want to see me. And that's basically how that went down because when I went in, first off, it took me 3 times to go over there, and she'd canceled on me twice before I finally made my third visit to see the neurologist. And when I saw her, she did not want to put me on DMTs. She pulled my license for 6 months because, or I think it was 6 months, might have been a year, and that was part of the reason I lost my job. Uh, she pulled my license for about 6 months, and I had to find rides and all that kind of stuff. It was a mess. I live in Arlington, and there's no mass transit here. It's the largest city in America without mass transit. So my life was a mess, and I didn't know what to do, and I was going broke. And I had spent 30 years in this industry that I had just gotten let go of, various places, but that was my career, and there's not a lot of jobs available in what I do. So um, I knew I was going to have to find something else to do, and so I just decided to go back to college and get a degree in IT. That's pretty much my diagnosis story. There is a whole lot in between, but the diagnosis, yeah, I felt sorry for myself. I was looking through the window just like, oh man, I'm all by myself. And I was. I am. Always easy. But, I put on a good face. I try. I do my best. Anyway, that was my diagnosis story. Have a good day.